Welcome back to Weekly Classic Movie Night, the show where we watch one classic movie every week. It's pretty self-explanatory. Today, we're talking about Babel. We just watched Babel. I was looking forward to this, not just because it's Alejandro Inarritu, but because this cast. I mean, Cate Blanchett, Brad Pitt, a tiny little Elle Fanning, and a whole bunch of others. It's a really strong cast. But after watching the movie, I was a little let down. Now, will I say that my expectations may have gotten the best of me? Yes. This is one that kind of disappointed me. I think it's a good movie. It's a very well-made movie, and it's a feat of logistics. I mean, they shoot in a bunch of different countries, on location with tons of actors. The scheduling that they'd have to do just to get the actors on set, not much less in the country that they're supposed to be in, is quite a feat on its own. And the film looks good too. It's shot very well. It's claustrophobic. It's handheld. It's really tight on the actors. It creates this sense of dread. And it manages tension and suspense very, very well. The premise itself is pretty simple, although there's a lot to discuss with it. The premise is that a tourist in Morocco gets shot, and they deal with the fallout of that. That's a simple premise, but there's 4 stories, 4 families intertwined into this story. You have a Japanese dad and daughter. The Japanese dad was the original owner of the gun. He hunted wild, big game, and he gave a gun to his guide who helped him find the big game. Then the guide sold the gun to a Morocco guy, and he let his 2 kids play with it. The kids played with it and ended up shooting a tourist on a bus on accident. I guess it wasn't really on accident. They shot at the bus. I guess they didn't mean to shoot someone, but they shot at the bus. I don't know what they were expecting. But then the 2 tourists that got shot have to deal with being shot, and their kids are stuck at home with their nanny, and their nanny has her son's funeral to get to. So it's this intertwining circle of characters, and that's generally the plot. It's just these 4 families dealing with this one catalyst incident of somebody getting shot, and how that kind of ripple effect goes throughout all of the families. The biggest thing with this movie is that most of these characters are not interesting, at least to me. And that's the biggest disappointment, because Alejandro is usually great at crafting character-driven things.
You know, the douchebag's born every minute. That was P.T. Barnum's premise when he invented the circus, and nothing much has changed. And you guys know that if you crank out any toxic piece of crap, people will line up and pay to see it.
And the characters here are just not interesting. The Japanese girl, the deaf-mute girl, is the best part of the movie for me. She actually has things that she's trying to do. She has choices she's making. She's dealing with the consequences of those choices. She's taking her panties off and flashing guys in really kind of strange fashion. She's getting fully naked and trying to get a policeman to have sex with her. She's trying to get laid. She's this rebel who is trying to figure out who she is after her mom killed herself. It's a tragic story, and it's kind of difficult to watch at times because you feel for her so much. It's an empathetic story, and I love that. But then Brad Pitt and Cate Blanchett just got shot and is like laying around the whole movie. Why was it Cate Blanchett? I know they needed names, but it could have been anybody. She doesn't do anything. Brad Pitt doesn't really do anything. He has one scene where he cries on the phone with his kids. That's pretty good, but it's just a guy. He's just a guy, and he's helping his wife. The 2 kids are just kids. The dad's just a dad whose poor judgment got someone hurt and his kids killed. And then the dad of the Japanese girl is just her dad.
In the beginning, all the Lord's people from all parts of the world spoke one language. Nothing they proposed was impossible for them.
The story is so convoluted and bloated at times, it's difficult to make heads or tails of or be interested in. It's just a little too much. I think it's 2.5 hours, and boy, it feels like it's longer, unfortunately. Even with 4 different stories, it feels too long, because these characters just don't do much. Things just happen to them. I wish we got more storytelling with this, where characters were making things happen, like the Japanese girl. She's actively participating in her own story. Brad Pitt is just a MacGuffin in the story. The nanny is making choices and regretting them, but she's also just having things happen to her. Like this guy that is driving her to the border is drunk driving, and then he decides to shoot the gap and try and outrun the border patrol. It's not her doing it. And I wish that more characters were doing things, or making decisions, because it's just like things happen and then it ends. So we see these different cultures and how these people deal with the different cultures, and it seems to be like talking to the American audience, because many times there's things where it's like, oh, this culture is this way, and then a character experiences it and it's not that way. Like the tourists in Morocco are like, these people are thugs and gangsters, they're gonna kill us, and then they don't. Or the kids going to Mexico, my mom told me it's dangerous, and then they were fine and had a great time. So it's like, it seems to be kind of attacking people's prejudice towards cultures and showing that most culture is just people living their lives. Like, what are we afraid of? We're always so scared. If you go to this part of Mexico, you're gonna get shot. Someone's gonna steal from you. It's ambitious, and for what it is, I think it pulls it off mostly. For how ambitious it is, the editing and the direction being as clear as they are is a feat on its own. I think it does a good job of making things very simple and understandable for the audience. You just kind of have to let yourself be drawn into it, because the first 20 minutes is a complete cluster of I don't know what's going on, because you're not prepared for what this story is, or these 4 different families and how they intertwine, or what's going on. So by the end, you get a good foothold with it if you can make it there, but making it there is kind of difficult at times. So this is a tough one. I think this might be my least favorite movie we've done on Weekly Classic Movie Night yet, because I just don't see myself wanting to rewatch it. Again, it's good, but where would this fit in at any time for me to watch it? I don't know. Would I recommend this to anybody? Not really. If you're a film buff, I think there's interesting things to pull from it. But would I recommend it to any of my friends to watch in their free time? No. Would I watch it with a whole group of people? Not really. Would I recommend it to watch with a girl or a boyfriend? No. It's just like in this weird nebulous area. And that's probably why it doesn't get talked about a ton, unfortunately. Because it is worth talking about, but it's probably not worth recommending, which is kind of strange to say. But yeah, that's Babel. A good one, but not what I wanted it to be. I was a victim of my own expectations. But we have a new movie. Next week's movie for Weekly Classic Movie Night is a masterpiece, or so I've heard, from Alfonso Cuarón. It's Children of Men, a movie I've heard so much about that I have been intimidated by for so long, simply because of its reputation, of how awesome it is. And I don't want to go watch it and dislike it. I fall into that all the time. I'm like, that movie is so awesome, I just can't watch it because I don't want this reputation to be tainted. But I'm sure it'll be good. I've heard so many good things. I've seen so many clips about it. I'm excited. Children of Men, next week. It's good.